This god tier monk build uses a combination of lightning and ice skills to help you clear tier 15 maps quickly and destroy the toughest bosses in the game within seconds. Welcome back everyone, thank you so much for clicking on the video. Today we are breaking down the most powerful Invoker Monk build in Path of Exile 2. This is actually the final build in my monk build series, which many of you have been following over the last couple of weeks. Thanks again for all the views, comments, and engagements on those videos. The channel has been growing very fast, and I'm very grateful for that. This build makes map clearing incredibly fast thanks to the synergy between Herald of Ice and Herald of Thunder. It all begins with Ice Strike, your main damage dealing skill and the main contributor for instantly freezing enemies. Ice Strike is one of the best skills for the monk because it causes you to dash towards enemies you are targeting, allowing you to chain attacks with ease. The more attack speed you have on your build, the deadlier Ice Strike will be. Just be warned though, the higher your attack speed is, the more mana you will consume, so make sure you have sufficient mana regen rate on your build and a responsible mana control when clearing maps. You can also juice up your Ice Strike attacks with the Charge Staff skill, which infuses your staff with lightning, amplifying its damage and unlocking the ability for you to shoot lightning projectiles. With high freeze buildup, you'll be able to instantly freeze enemies, causing them to shatter and deal AoE damage thanks to Herald of Ice. This god tier monk build would not be complete without one of the best in slot uniques for the monk, which is the Pulsirkin Ring, aka the Arctic Circle Ring, which causes enemies chilled by your attacks to be shattered as though frozen. This ring eliminates the need for Shattered Palm and will allow you to shatter mobs instantly on and off screen in most cases, which is insane. Herald of Ice and Herald of Thunder also work off of each other to help you shock and freeze enemies simultaneously, which can be easily done by swapping the support gems for both skills, allowing Herald of Ice to boost your shock potential and Herald of Thunder to boost your freeze buildup. In this video, we'll break down the best skill gems, spirit gems, support gems, passive skill tree, and gear to help you make the best Ice Strike Invoker Monk build in Path of Exile 2. The active skill gems on this build are Unbound Avatar, Ice Strike, Tempest Spell, Charge Staff, Combat Frenzy, Wind Dancer, Herald of Ice, Herald of Thunder, and Ghost Dance. Unbound Avatar is one of the best ascendancy skills for the monk. This skill allows you to build stacks up to 100 every time you inflict enemies with status effects. Activating this skill at 100 stacks will make your monk unbound, increasing your elemental damage by 40%, elemental buildup by 40%, and increasing your chances to inflict elements by 80%. It's an easy way to make your monk even stronger and can be very beneficial when you're fighting big mobs or right before a boss fight. Ice Strike performs a fast, cold-infused combo attack. It can deal upward of about 140k DPS when all of your support gems are active, causing instant freeze buildup, and it can deal massive amounts of damage due to its attack pattern and final strike that is slower but more powerful. The key to making this skill deal a lot of damage is to stack your crit chance, crit damage, cold damage, and using best in slot support gems, which we will go over later in this video. Tempest Bell is your rare enemy or boss destroyer. This skill drops a resonating bell on the ground that deals AoE damage to enemies. When you get to endgame, you can make this skill deal 100 times more damage with support gems, allowing you to stack damage with each single hit on the bell. It isn't used much for mobs, but will be a valuable tool when you run into rare enemies that you need to eliminate quickly, for example, so you don't have to deal with those annoying fire or ice AoE modifiers they have. Every monk build should be using Tempest Spell. If you're not, you're sacrificing a substantial amount of damage during boss fights. Charge Staff uses energy charges to infuse your staff with lightning, which will amplify your damage with each charge you consume and will unlock the ability to shoot lightning projectiles. Now, a couple of you keep asking each video where my energy charges are coming from, so I'm going to try and make this as clear as possible. There's a spirit skill gem called Combat Frenzy that is being used on this build. Now, by default, Combat Frenzy gives you frenzy charges every time you freeze or electrocute enemies. Charge Staff cannot be activated with frenzy charges, which is why you need to unlock a passive skill in the passive skill tree called Resonance, which alters Combat Frenzy to provide you with energy charges instead of frenzy charges so you can activate Charge Staff. Hopefully this clears some of the confusion. Combat Frenzy, like I said, is where your energy charges are coming from. Every time you freeze enemies, you'll gain energy charges instead of frenzy charges thanks to the Resonance passive skill. Wind Dancer is a powerful defensive spirit skill that I added to the build. I noticed I was struggling a lot with survivability in my previous version of this build, so I added this spirit skill to improve my defense. This buff gives me 19% evasion every 1.5 seconds up to 4 stacks with 20% quality. With all my passives, gear, and Wind Dancer included, I'm sitting at about 84% evasion and 15k evasion rating, which has helped tremendously with my survivability. I would even go as far as saying it's a must-have skill if you want to stay alive in higher tier maps in the endgame. Herald of Ice makes every frozen enemy shatter on screen when you attack them, which deals AoE damage and will allow you to chain kills very quickly. When you pair this spirit skill with the Pulsirkin Ring, which causes enemies chilled by your attacks to be shattered as though frozen, you'll be able to clear all enemies on screen in less than a second. Herald of Thunder unleashes lightning bolts from the sky whenever you kill shocked enemies. This buff works incredibly well with Herald of Ice if you use the right support gems, and will make map clearing even faster since you'll be dealing cold damage, lightning damage, freezing enemies, and striking them with high damage lightning bolts from the sky. And lastly, we have Ghost Dance. This buff allows you to periodically gain ghost shards, which are immediately consumed to recover energy shield based on your evasion. The higher your evasion is, the more energy shield you will gain back. This is just adding another layer of survivability on top of Wind Dancer, and with the right support gems, both of these buffs can be extremely valuable to the build. For Unbound Avatar, I'm using the Cold Mastery and Lightning Mastery support gems. These add +1 to your lightning and cold skills, which is an easy way to increase their damage and efficiency. For Ice Strike, I have 5 support gems. Ice Bite increases your cold damage by 35% whenever you freeze enemies. Martial Tempo increases your attack speed by 25%, giving you a massive boost in DPS. Crescendo allows you to perform the final strike in your Ice Strike combo twice in one succession, which is incredible considering it's your hardest hitting strike and will allow you to kill bosses even faster. Primal Armament increases your elemental damage by 25%, and Concentrated Effect gives you a massive DPS boost since it increases your area damage by 40%, but does lower your AoE, so sometimes if you feel like you're not connecting with your hits, this support gem might be why. I didn't notice enough inconsistencies for me to sacrifice the damage though. 40% area damage is a lot and will increase your DPS drastically. I have 4 support gems for Tempest Spell. Close Combat increases your attack damage by 25% when you damage enemies within 1 meter, making it an obvious choice for Tempest Spell since you'll be directly on top of enemies or bosses anyways with this skill. Rage lets you stack 3 rage per melee hit all the way up to 10 stacks, allowing you to achieve 30% extra damage very quickly. And Font of Rage creates an aura around Tempest Spell, allowing you to stack rage and hit the maximum 30% damage faster. For Charge Staff, I'm using Persistence, which increases skill duration by 40%, Perpetual Charge, which applies a 35% chance for you to not consume energy charges when activating Charge Staff, and Inspiration, which lowers the mana cost of the skill by 40%, allowing you to use it more times before depleting your mana flask. For Combat Frenzy, the only support gem you need is Profusion. This support gem adds a 35% chance for you to gain additional energy charges when you freeze enemies, allowing you to achieve max charges faster. For Wind Dancer, I have Blind, which applies a 100% chance to blind enemies who attack you with a melee attack, which will prevent you from getting hit. Cold Exposure, which has a chance to lower enemies' cold resistance by 20% if you hit them with a crit. And Maim, which slows down enemies who hit you with a melee attack. The idea behind these gems is to debuff enemies who successfully reset your Wind Dancer. Since you'll be blinding them and slowing them down, it's very easy to stay alive and get those Wind Dancer stacks back. For Herald of Ice, you're going to be stacking lightning support gems, and this is because it's going to force both of your heralds to work off of each other to provide you with more damage and AoE potential. I have Innervate, which adds 35% lightning damage for 3 seconds when you shock enemies, Conduction, which increases shock chance by 100%, and Lightning Infusion, which adds 25% lightning damage. The same principle applies for Herald of Thunder. Glaciation increases freeze buildup by 50%, Cold Infusion adds 25% cold damage to Herald of Thunder, and Ambush gives you 100% crit hit chance against enemies on full health, giving you the most amount of damage possible. Ghost Dance will be active most of the time, which means you can take advantage of this uptime to increase your survivability and efficiency more by using support gems like Vitality, which give you 1% life per second, Cannibalism, which gives you 4% life per enemy killed, and Clarity, which increases your mana regen rate by 30% when Ghost Dance is active. Now, obviously these skills can be even better with more support gems, but as of right now, my Greater and Perfect Jeweler Orb supply is pretty low. If you want to see all the support gems I plan on socketing into each skill, you can see a full written breakdown of the build by clicking on the Mobalytics link in the pinned comment below. This build uses the Invoker Ascendancy, and so far I have allocated 6 Ascendancy points into my tree. I have Eye in the Blizzard, which increases cold damage by 10% and creates chilled ground whenever you freeze enemies. Unbound Avatar, which allows you to build stacks up to 100 every time you inflict status effects. I'm also using Sunder My Enemies, which makes all crit hits ignore non-negative elemental resistance. With a critical strike build focused on elemental skill, this is incredibly powerful. It effectively allows you to ignore elemental penetration on your gear and passive tree as long as you crit often. Step Like Mist and Flow Like Water will be the first passives you unlock. Collectively, they increase your movement speed, mana regen, attack speed, and add plus 10 dex and intelligence to the build, which you will need to use for higher tier skill gems and gear. Crashing Wave is really good too because it increases your attack damage by 36% whenever you crit. Passives like Mindful Awareness and E-Material are also crucial for this build because you want to stack as much evasion as possible. E-Material works really well with Ghost Dance because it gives you 50% more evasion whenever your energy shield recharges. Essence of the Mountain is a really good passive you can unlock early, which increases your cold damage by 5%, and your freeze buildup by 20%. If you want to deal more damage, you need to crit, and an easy way you can increase your chances of that early is to unlock Moment of Truth, which boosts your crit chance by 20% and provides some nice crit damage bonuses. Killer Instinct will give you some notable damage bonuses like 30% increased damage when you have full health and 50% damage when on low life. Attack speed is also very important if you want to clear maps and kill bosses quickly. Tenfold attacks essentially gives you 10% extra attack speed if you have been hit recently. If we move up a bit here, you'll grab one of the most important passives on the build, which is Resonance. Again, like I mentioned guys, this skill allows Combat Frenzy to give you energy charges instead of frenzy charges. You need those energy charges to activate Charged Staff. To the left, you'll grab True Strike, For the Jugular, and Deadly Force, all of which boost your crit chance and crit damage on the build. Now, like I said, attack speed is very important, which is why you should also grab these nodes up here until Deep Trance, which collectively adds nearly 20% attack speed with your skills. Very important. Spectral Ward gives you plus 1 energy shield per 12 evasion rating on your build, which is a very easy way to increase your energy shield capacity. You should also grab Overflowing Charge, which increases your maximum energy charge capacity by plus 2 and increases your crit damage by 80% whenever you consume energy charges. This will make your charged staff very powerful. Throat Seeker gives you a lot of crit damage bonus, but you do lose some crit chance in return, which isn't a big deal. The trade-off is well worth it. These Quarterstaff passives are a must-have for any monk build. One with the River increases stun buildup and freeze buildup by 30%. Whirling Assault increases attack speed and knocks enemies back when you crit. Martial Artistry increases crit damage, and one with the Storm counts energy charge consumption as 2, meaning if you consume 2 energy charges, the damage will be as high as consuming 3 energy charges, for example. Coming Calamity should not be ignored either. This passive gives you 50% extra lightning and cold damage whenever Herald of Thunder and Herald of Ice are activated. 75% if you count the smaller nodes leading to it. Like I mentioned, evasion is crucial for this build, which is why you should grab Enhanced Reflexes and Bestial Skin. Also, these proficiency nodes will give you a massive dexterity boost on your build, allowing you to reach minimum requirements for skills or gear, and Falcon Technique is another easy way to boost your attack speed even further. This passive increases your attack speed by 1% for every 15 dexterity you have on your build. My main weapon is the Demon Roar Expert Long Quarterstaff, 20% quality, 170 to 353 physical damage, 2 iron runes giving me 40% extra physical attack damage, and for the modifiers I have 16% increased range, 125% physical attack damage, 33 to 45 cold damage, 76% elemental damage with attacks, and 15% attack speed. My helmet is the Brimstone Star Expert Hunter Hood with 20% quality, 635 evasion rating with an iron rune giving me 40% increased evasion and energy shield. For modifiers, I have 79% increased evasion, 174 mana, 29% increased rarity of items found, 13% fire resistance, 23% cold resistance, and 24% chaos resistance. My body armor is the Beast Skin Expert Scalper's Jacket with 20% quality, 559 evasion rating, 211 energy shield, 2 iron runes giving me 40% increased evasion and energy shield, and for modifiers I have 5% increased movement speed, 69% evasion and shield, 57 spirit, 12 intelligence, 35% fire resistance, and 35% lightning resistance. For gloves, the Gollum Vise Expert Spiral Wraps with 148 evasion, 57 shield, iron rune adding 20% increased evasion and shield, and for modifiers, 83% increased evasion and shield, 1 to 4 physical damage, 9 to 17 cold damage, 24 dex, 28% cold resistance, and 27% lightning resistance. My belt isn't anything special, I just used one that gave me 39% cold resistance and 34% lightning resistance. For boots, I have the Wrath Trail Expert Frayed Shoes with 20% quality, 245 evasion, 94 energy shield, and for modifiers, 25% increased movement speed, 124% increased evasion and shield, 38% fire resistance, and 35% lightning resistance. My first ring is a unique ring called the Pulsirkin Ring, aka the Arctic Circle Ring, which causes enemies chilled by your attacks to be shattered as though frozen. This ring eliminates the need for Shattered Palm and will allow you to shatter mobs instantly on and off screen in most cases, which is insane. It also rolls with cold resistance and extra cold damage, which is perfect for this build. Now, this ring was expensive though. It cost me 1 Divine Orb, which isn't easy to come by, but it was definitely well worth it. My second ring is a Havoc Finger Breach Ring. This ring is powerful because it can be increased up to 50% quality, which will boost all the attack modifiers in the ring, like cold damage and lightning damage. I would also try your best to get mana regen on your build whenever you can, so you can have more control over your skills with less reliability on your mana flask. Luckily for me, my mana flask comes with 70% increased mana recovery rate, which is the main reason my mana control is so good on this build. Last piece of gear is the Rage Clasp Gold Amulet with 14% increased rarity of items found, 31% evasion, 43 spirit, some more rarity, crit chance, and 63% mana regen rate. For my character stats, I have 64 strength, 179 dexterity, 109 intelligence, 1500 life, 1000 energy shield, 900 mana, and 200 spirit on the build, which is how much you will need to activate all spirit gems. I have 84% evasion with all my buffs, 66% fire resistance, 75% cold and lightning resistance, and 55% chaos resistance. You will need to increase all of these as much as possible if you want to stand any chance in higher maps without getting one-shotted. Thank you so much for watching the video and sticking around until the end. I have 3 versions of this build on the channel that will guide you on how to progress to endgame, so if you're new, I would watch those videos first. Also, if you're interested in making a ranger, I dropped 2 ranger build guides recently which show you how to make the best lightning ranger Deadeye build in Path of Exile 2. Those are definitely worth a watch, so check it out when you got some time. If you enjoyed this video, please leave a thumbs up if you can. It helps the channel grow and it will recommend the video to more people. If you want to see more Path of Exile 2 videos coming soon, make sure you subscribe and turn on those bell notifications. Thanks for watching, everyone.